about 100 miles an hour as we cruise down the Silk Road, blowing OG out the whip, trying to pull hoes. I dream of empires, trying to stack guap like niggas who work on Wall Street, so I'm chasing buyers. Log in, there's plenty of users and consumers getting high and rich off of their computer. Ain't nothing new, this info wait for everybody, yo. Use it to your advantage to take over your body, yo. Magic mushrooms, I had them eating them like Mario. Blockchain heavy, got it clicking with the Molly flow. And niggas gotta know.
It was founded by a Japanese guy.
Or guys, or girls, going by the name Satoshi Nakamoto in 2008. True identity still unknown.
Talking about niggas grilling, man. We out here. Lordy. Yeah. I told my Lordy to take a look inside the dark market. Upload the Bitcoin, we going car shopping. Yeah. You wanted me to check out your music page, you not popping. Knock your ass out like Bernard Hopkins. I got a computer geek white boy, you go to John Hopkins. One Bitcoin worth $8,000. Let's get it. Found the vendor off the Tor browser, bought product and flipped it. He just needed a drop addy for where they gonna ship it. It wasn't a scam, he read the forms before he made a decision. Until he ran into his man Skrilla. Yeah. Told him we can do this shit legally, no need for paraphernalia. Just keep your word, I heard here's somebody that'll kill you. I'm on a Coinbase, looking kinda familiar, like I've been here before. I see the transaction on the blockchain, you gotta spin with your boy. Shoot me the address to the wallet, and I'ma send it tomorrow. Just make me want run up in all black on the horse like Zorro. It'll be best to control your temperature, Paco. Put a nigga ass in the footy nails, there won't be nobody there to help me. Coinbase layout super easy, there's no way I can fail you. Use the VPN so the boys have no way to trail you. The move at fast pace, I had to control the hash rate. The value of the Bitcoin decreased, it was a bad day. Misogynist acts use bitches' backs as an ashtray. Skate on bitches like Cascade. I'm out. My lordy got a Bitcoin ATM in his living room. All of the cash I had in my pocket, I wanted to give it to him. With the vision, I'm vicariously living through him. I told my bro it's a way that we can make money even though it's different for him. He got a new job contract, want me to rip it for him. Told me any ideas I had in my mind, go ahead, pitch it to him. My Duke's busting the room like, what are you niggas doing? Yo, give me the yeah. I told my lordy to take a look inside the dark market. Upload the Bitcoin, we going car shopping. Yeah. You wanted me to check out your music page, you not popping. Knock your ass out like Bernard Hopkins. I got a computer geek white boy, you go to John Hopkins. One Bitcoin worth $8,000. Let's get it. Found the vendor off the Tor browser, bought product and flipped it. He just needed a drop addy for where they gonna ship it.
All right, I think we're live. Let's do it.
What is up, Bitcoiners? We have an awesome cast today for Drinks in Quarantine. I'm CK Snarks. My job is to make sure that the drinks are flowing and the conversations are as well. I'm going to kick it off to Bran BTC, and then we're going to go one by one and introduce our panelists. Bran, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey everybody, it's Bran BTC. Excited for this edition of Drinks in Quarantine. This is going to be a really good one. We've got some of the greatest Bitcoin content creators in the world on the show tonight. Cannot wait. Let's get into it. Let's get some introductions going.
All right, let's start with Sessions.
Hey, anybody who doesn't know me, I am Ben Perrin, aka BTC Sessions on YouTube, and I do a lot of tutorials and news. Been doing it since 2016. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Let's go to Max Kaiser. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. I am Mr. Stacy Herbert, and I appear on Stacy Herbert's television show, The Kaiser Report. and I read everything she puts in front of my face. And I'm a big fan of Bitcoin Magazine.
Awesome. We love Stacy and Mr. Stacy as well. So thanks for coming on. Kiss, why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
Hi, keep it simple Bitcoin, make Bitcoin tutorials without any audio or video. And I came with my special outfit tonight.
I like it. I like it. Nico, what's up, man? Welcome to DIQ.
What's up, everybody? My name is Nico, or like people know me on Twitter, Bitfault7, and I make content for YouTube. I make Simply Bitcoin, which is a 10-minute news Twitter fails type thing for YouTube, and I also do a podcast as well. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. And then last here is Coin Icarus. Welcome to the show.
What's happening?
Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Glad to be back. So, I do the Fun with Bitcoin podcast, but as well, I do Simply Bitcoin with Nico, and we are a Bitcoin-only show on YouTube.
Awesome. And Pomp may be joining. He may be flaking out last minute, but he did say that he was going to be coming on. But without further ado, let's just get into the rules for today. So this is Drinks in Quarantine. I hope you all have drinks. I have my my whiskey here, and essentially, we have some rules. If you say the wrong words, you have to drink. So the words today that that are on the no say list are Bitcoin, followers, and drink. So I'll drink to that. And if you say those words, you just got to drink. And, we want to keep the drinks flowing. It's a Thursday night. So should be pretty fun. You guys, the reason you're all here is you are all content creators. Part of Bitcoin is building out the tech, but the other part is building out the education, building out the community, translating, the blockchain over into what people actually understand and makes a difference to their lives. When talking about content creation, I think that Bitcoin content creation has really evolved and changed. Let's just start by reflecting on where Bitcoin education started from and where it is today. I can't think of a better person to start it off than Max Kaiser. Recently just watched a clip where someone said, I don't know who Andreas is, but Max Kaiser, that's how I learned about Bitcoin. So Max, you're one of the earliest evangelists. Why don't you talk about this journey into, translating Bitcoin into what people can actually understand?
Right. That was Adam Curry on the Joe Rogan show. And yeah, we were actually talking about Bitcoin before Andreas was talking about Bitcoin back in early 2011. But I think the evolution of the education of Bitcoin in the media, I think we have to give credit to memes. Memes really, especially in 2016, with the U.S. politics, memes became huge. Remember, Pepe the Frog was suddenly a meme that had a huge factor, apparently, on the presidential election. And in the Bitcoin space, memes like money printer go burr, that communicates instantly the whole to people. Oh, do I have to drink, by the way? Did I say the magic word?
Sure.
Anyway, whatever. So that meme instantly communicated to people the relationship between money printing and Bitcoin. Bitcoin is hard money, and so I think that's really remarkable in a lot of ways, and I think that does so much to grab people's attention and pull them in, more so than being didactic and saying well, Bitcoin's good for you, it's going to solve your constipation, it'll make you thinner, it'll solve your gray hair, it's better than the other guy. It's got to be instant, in this instant communication world.
Yeah, I love the memes, and I think memes are underrated. The best memers are the ones who are in power today, and I think that trend's going to continue. I want to jump over to BTC Sessions. I'm part of class of 2017, and I remember one of the very first videos I watched was "What hardware wallet should you buy" by BTC Sessions, and I know you've been making a lot of educational content, since I think 2016, and personally, I've been impacted by it. Why don't you talk about, the evolution of Bitcoin education?
Yeah. Well, I mean, firstly, it's always massively flattering hearing anybody say like, oh, I learned how to do this from a video that I made like a couple years ago or something. It's always really cool to see and hear that. I guess when I started diving in, it was around 2014. I started learning in it, and it was still tough. Definitely was not this cornucopia of excellent Bitcoiners that were also great at content creation back then. It's the space has expanded so much in those past 6 years, but that's very much why I kind of dove in. I spent a good couple of years learning as much as I could, trying to sort through technical writings on how to work different things, or just trial and error. And I realized maybe somehow I could fit into the niche of Bitcoin education. I did previous to this, I used to teach little kids how to break dance. Was my old job. And so like a lot of people are like, how the hell do you transition from that to this? I mean, to be fair, teaching, school age children how to do complex dance moves is surprisingly similar to teaching adults how to master complex technology. And so it was oddly, I was already comfortable in front of a camera and performing stuff like that. So transition was oddly smooth. Nobody really cared about the channel initially, but it started to grow. And again, like everybody starts with Max and starts with Andreas and some of the early ones, and now there's just, again, like, keep it simple. I'm always looking at his stuff, seeing like Nico and you guys at Bitcoin Magazine, and continuing to watch Max and see Coin Icarus and just all the stuff out there. It's there's so much to choose from now. It's amazing. There's 10 times the noise that you have to navigate, but I think Bitcoiners, hold on, I think our community is doing an excellent job holding down the fort and pumping out quality content. And I hope that I can continue to contribute to that in any way.
All right, let's jump to Kiss, since BTC Benny did mention you. I personally love your videos, very detailed. If you haven't checked out KIS Bitcoin on Twitter and on YouTube, you better. Kiss, why don't you talk about that evolution?
Yeah, I've been in this space for about, I think 2015. And I've always been trying to figure out how to contribute, because, I feel like it's really important. And I felt like if I look back, in 10, 15 years and I didn't do anything, I would have been pissed. I would have been upset. And so I went in so many different directions. I learned how to code and then tried that, and it was like not my thing. I didn't want to be in front of the camera because I didn't feel like I had anything to add. I just didn't know what to do. And eventually I found 402 payment required. He used to make tutorial video, or he, she, they used to make tutorials. And I thought, there's nothing out there that's like a point and click, hold your hand through it type of video, where you don't need to know, about multi-sig. You don't need to know about in-depth security. Come and watch like one of my tutorials, and it will go from A to Z, how to get from start to finish. And then I sprinkle in, things that I think are important, things that some people think are extreme, extreme privacy, extreme security. But I do it in a way where it's like a highlight. So it's like, oh, okay, now I know about this, but let me get to the end of it, because it's too much. This space is so complicated and difficult and overwhelming that paralysis by analysis takes hold, and then people don't do anything. So I wanted to create something that, like, my grandmother can, make a wallet. And I've proved some of my videos. I've had little kids watch a video and see if they can do it. Obviously I help, but it sticks. It actually holds pretty good. And that's why I don't like talking either, because it could get kind of like verbose. It's actually more difficult than you would think to be really clear and concise. And these videos take me so long to make. I started timing them and seeing how much time a video took while working with Cold Card. And I was making, a bunch of their videos recently. and it's just amazing how long it takes. I mean, the smallest little detail takes 10, 15 minutes sometimes, but it's it doesn't have to be complex. I just want to help people go from A to Z. That's it. And then, go watch someone else's videos, go learn about another facet of it. Whatever you do, all my stuff is just super practical.
Yeah, no, and you're probably right. Like just being detail oriented with the editing is extremely hard, and not talking is kind of like a additional challenge. Talking about kind of like making Bitcoin complicated things simple. I remember Coin Icarus, you taught our boy Nick how to flash a Casa node over to a my node, and you've been doing a lot of kind of like node related technical stuff. Why don't you talk about kind of your experience, diving into that part of Bitcoin education?
So I really appreciate that, and it was actually really fun, and I still continue to help people who who reach out to me about it. And essentially, what I found was that even though there's a lot of material out there, because there's tons of amazing material, you have to be at a certain technical level to get it, and a lot of people are intimidated by the command line. And so for me, actually, like I made a video on how to do the on how to put together a Raspberry Blitz using Windows. And I've already had a couple of people try it out, and they've been successful and been able to get their node up and running, and they found it a lot easier, a lot less intimidating to see the command line work done by somebody else, so they know actually what to write. Because even though we do our best to show it to them, it's like until sometimes somebody actually sees it, they still get intimidated by it, so there's that aspect of it. But I wanted to touch on something that Keep It Simple said, about what to do in the space. That's something that I found at the beginning very intimidating, because especially when I first got started in like late 2016, everybody that I would follow is a programmer. Everyone's an engineer. Everyone knows how to do something just really incredible, and how to make something from nothing. And it's, it was kind of like, I want to make material for this because I'm passionate about Bitcoin, but what can I actually contribute that, maybe some other people can't? And it's not to say that, nobody else can do a podcast. There's tons of podcasts out there, but I just, for me, it's like, it's about having the, getting to learn about people's experiences going into Bitcoin and getting to see all the similarities.
Awesome. And yeah, I agree. Contributing is just so rewarding, especially because there's just so much more to Bitcoin besides just, an investment or educating on a topic. Like it's something that, all of us feel passionate about. Nico, why don't you talk about like why YouTube? I know that you kind of jumped in and that's like your main medium, and that's, we're all YouTubers here. Why did you jump into YouTube as one of the things that you focus on with Bitcoin education and content?
Absolutely. So I think that it would be disingenuous if I didn't, shout out to the people that kind of inspired me on YouTube first, which would definitely be Max and Andreas. Their content is just, especially when you're getting into Bitcoin, they do a very good job of explaining it, and not that many people could do that. And to answer your original question, why YouTube? Well, I spend a lot of time on YouTube, right? So, I kind of consume most of my media on YouTube, on that mean or whatever. And what started to happen is I kind of started a podcast on my spare time. And, I've had UCK, I've had KIS, I've had Phil, Coin Icarus. And, one of the things that I've noticed, and to kind of add to KS's point, like, a lot of people, when they get into this space, they feel kind of, abandoned, right? They don't know how to contribute. And what I started to realize as a podcaster is everyone could contribute in their own way. You don't need to know how to code. You don't need to know how to do specific things. But also when I did the podcast with Phil, I just, this light bulb came into my head that night, and I was just like, man, this guy is perfect. I need to approach him, because I was sick and tired of seeing all these altcoins or shitcoin channels, and they're just completely wrecking noobs, and they were just showing the news and doing a meme review and doing whatever. And I approached Phil that same night. I'm like, Phil, I got an idea. listen, we're going to do the same type of format that these guys do, but we're just going to do only Bitcoin. And man, the rest is history. And he really liked the idea, and that's where we decided to start Simply Bitcoin. And we've been doing it for a month, and we've loved it. We've loved it ever since.
I love that. Anyone else want to jump into that topic of like kind of fighting against, you know, the altcoin propaganda and the altcoin content that's coming out?
Yeah,
YouTube is a cesspool. Sorry, go ahead, Max. I just wanted to
okay, cool,
put
man.
that in.
So yeah, a couple of points. First of all, you know, this industry, this Bitcoin industry lacks something that almost every other industry has, and that is publicists. You know, every other industry, whether it's the evil banking industry, Hollywood industry, fashion industry, you know, the farming industry, they hire publicists, people who spend all day just putting out positive spin on shitty stories. You know, we don't, because this Bitcoin is decentralized and there is no centralization, there's nobody there to hire a publicist, and that it shows up in that there's so many cross messages and so many people stepping on each other's toes. There's no uniformed message, and that there's no solution to that, sadly. The second thing is that everyone on the call here is saying, I didn't know how to contribute, but there's actually two parts to that. By walking away from what you were doing is contributing to the demise of fiat money. That was step number one. Now you're in a place like, oh, now I'm heading into Bitcoin. But there's two sides. You're moving away from fiat. That's contributing hugely. That's it.
Well, yeah, just on that point, speaking to Stacy recently, I feel like that was a really big part of what you guys push, is that what your actions are, like that's the message. You want to reject JP Morgan, buy silver. You want to burn fiat, buy Bitcoin. Like it's like take action. And I think there's something really empowering by that message.
Right. Everything's got to have urgency, right? So I started out on Wall Street. You know, I did that for 8 years, from 82 to 90. And sales is all about urgency. There's got to be a reason for somebody to buy something. And it's not because it's good for them. And it's not because it makes sense. It's because it's emotional. That's all sales take place on the emotion. So on Kaiser Report, when I talk about Bitcoin, I reach out and I try to grab people by the lapels and say, you know, if you're not doing this, you know, you're fucking up in a big way. You know, I say, you know, metaphorically, and my job is to make them curious. And then once they get into the rabbit hole, then they find everybody else. But I can't explain it and logically why you should do it, because that's not what sales is. My job is to just say emotionally to make people insecure by not owning it. And then they jump in the rabbit hole. And then I know Bitcoin takes care of the rest, because once you get it into your head, it starts to work on you.
Yeah. And you were speaking about how there's no kind of organized effort to drive the narrative, but it's also like the beauty of Bitcoin, because in itself, you eventually coalesce on this truth that is Bitcoin. I know I'm racking up my drinks as I say this, but I don't give a fuck. Anyways,
Want to see a big chug?
Yeah, it'll happen. So yeah, like you're kind of actively seeing everybody go through the motions of no coiner to, you know, pre-coiner to, you know, for many shit coiner, and then down that rabbit hole to eventual Bitcoiner. The people that have already made that gradual transition are just trying to help with that transition for everybody else, to help them avoid the pitfalls of shitcoinery that we already went through, because we've already seen it and we see it happening again and again. I mean, like DeFi is ICOs 2.0, obviously. So we see things happening again, and we're just trying to help people through the same process, but without as much heartache. And again, this lack of direction is, I think, why so many people are trying to dive into. That's why we have a big group here talking about creating content on YouTube to help people understand Bitcoin, because we realize the importance, and we want to help people through that process as easily as possible. So it is beautiful to see, even without publicists, this happening right here.
Absolutely.
And here we go.
And just to kind of add on Max's point and BTC Sessions point, I got sick and tired of, of these altcoin channels. They would just get, they have like 200,000 subscribers, and you're like, how the hell? And then you start to notice the patterns, right? So like Andreas, he used to not care about the thumbnails and the stupid things that would get people to, I'm going to use Max as example, stupid things to get people to buy, right? So in this case, it would be the stupid things to get people to click. And I got so sick and tired because you look at Andreas, like he didn't have that many subscribers compared to his quality of content, right? So, so like I got tired of that. So I'm like, okay, what if we use the same game that they're playing, but just make it exclusively for Bitcoin? So good thumbnails, kind of a daily recap, a daily thing, and use their same kind of, dirty things that get people to click. But instead of, inevitably crashing these people or wrecking these people, we're actually kind of serving a purpose for Bitcoin. We're kind of giving back in a sense.
You're catfishing with quality content.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly it. We're hoping.
So why don't you add to that, Phil?
I mean, man, I don't really know what else to say to that piece, but that, Sessions got it. That's exactly what we're doing. I mean, it's, it's kind of clickbaity and it's fun, but at the same time, we're serving up the Bitcoin information because, to Nico's point, that YouTube is just full of altcoin garbage and shitcoin garbage. And it's just, this is, the scammers have more resources. The scammers put out the really flashy stuff. They put out the great videos. They put out all the fantastic, like slugs that make people want their garbage and people buy it. So it's like, you know what? Why don't we just use the exact same tactics, but give them Bitcoin instead?
Well, yeah, I mean, like you do the thumbnail that's something technical, and you're going to get probably less click through. You do a chart with like a circle around some price point or something, and then you briefly mention the price at the beginning, and then you dive into, but now there's a new release of Sparrow Wallet, and Coldcard has an update, and there's multi-sig, and like you dive into the important stuff that actually will make a difference in people understanding Bitcoin and what's going on in the macro landscape and what's happening with the Fed. And you can get people to click and then become interested in the important stuff. And I totally get the tactic that you're talking about, because if we don't have organization, then we have to recognize the people that do and exhibit those same tactics. But again, as I said, catfish with quality.
I can definitely relate to that too, just because like to be a successful YouTube channel, you kind of have to follow the best practices. I'm actually kind of curious to jump to Max, because I'm curious how much Kaiser Report thinks about that. Like I know a lot of what you guys are doing is kind of built on legacy distribution through what you were doing prior to kind of like Bitcoin and maybe even like internet media becoming dominant, but you guys have also become very native. Like what's important to growing, distribution across YouTube and other channels?
Right. Well, we just launched a new podcast, Orange Pill Podcast, produced by Stacy and directed by Stacy. And this is the next step in the evolution to the theory here and the idea here and the mantra behind the content is that we're post having swallowed the red pill. We took the red pill now. We took it 10 years ago. We took the red pill. Now we're taking the orange pill. So which is what happens after you've been woke. What happens in, let's focus on like Nigeria. It's 30% hyper Bitcoinization today. They're moving ahead, the Nigeria, into a fully Bitcoin enabled economy. You've got countries that are doing strategic mining in Bitcoin, and they are transforming their whole countries. So that's the next level. That's the next thing. So how we evolved the content over time, it became, as far as the platform goes and the different platforms, obviously we have one major platform, and that would be the global television network, that is RT. And we've been on there for over 10 years. We get 30 million viewers a week. It's dubbed into Spanish, and our Spanish audience gets 20 million viewers a week. We get many, many more views on YouTube in Spanish now than we do, because that Spanish audience, that Spanish-speaking audience is already transforming itself and becoming hyper Bitcoinized. more so than you see in the United States. And we try to um, really I mean, there's no substitute for being on a global international network like RT, which has the similar media footprint as the BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera English. You know, it's a huge network that it has something like 500 million, you know, screens out there potentially, and it's just huge. Now, I will say that you know our coverage of Bitcoin starting in 2011 was so radically different than anything else on television at the time that I don't think anybody who manages the network was really had any idea what we were talking about. You know, so it was a bit of a risk, actually. We transitioned to Bitcoin in 2011 because the gold and silver market had peaked. Up into for the 5 years before then, we were very much into gold and silver. And then you had this gold and silver topped out. And then we had John Matonis come on, tell us about Bitcoin in 2011. And we immediately said, well, this is kind of the next thing we need to cover. But I mean, to answer the question is we're not trying to incrementally get another few thousand viewers, right? We're on a freaking global network. We've got millions and millions of viewers right now. And that's unlike anybody else. Nobody's got a stick like that. Nobody's got, you know, this type of network presence in this space. Nobody even comes freaking close. CNBC came in 2017 and immediately started buying XRP at $2.50, and their credibility went to shit, right?
Never forget when they called the top by telling everyone how to buy XRP.
Yeah, right. So they came in late, and then they've been struggling ever since. Then they ignored it until the recent rally. They've got nobody. They've got initially there were people on there were horrible. Now they've got a few people. I mean, Pomp, he's supposed to be on this podcast, but Pomp is, in my view, and Meltem Demirors, those two on CNBC are hitting it, are crushing it. They're perfect for that medium. They're doing a great job, and that now. You know, I look at that and I'm saying, okay, now finally, you know, 10 years after we started, there's actually good, you know, mainstream television, you know, comparable to what's been going on. So, I mean, we're obviously thinking how to take it. We want to stay on top. We like to think we're on top. So, you know, always thinking about ways to expand that and promote that. But the network TV is both a blessing, but it's also, you are limited to some degree because it is network television and it's limited in time, and you have network standards. It's global television. It's, you know, it's in 100 different countries, and every single country has a separate and unique guideline for speech and things you can say and can't say. That's just the nature of network television. It was the same for the BBC, same for all network television. So you have to kind of wedge that all in. And I hope that answered the question, I think.
Yeah, no, that was great. And I think a good transition from that is like, you know, here's the network world, and obviously you've leveraged that to benefit Bitcoin. And then there's like the campfire world, the world where there's thousands of little content creators, you know, also shouting about Bitcoin. I'm curious, just to go back to KIS, you know, what are your thoughts about like the YouTube medium being able just to go out there and publish content? You know, and was it, you know, what is it like to be an independent content creator and try to grow a channel that way?
So, you know, my perspective might be a little bit different than everyone else's. I'm a bit cynical of decentralized service. I'm cynical of any centralized third party. When a couple months ago, I think it was Tone Vase, he got his channel locked down, something happened to him. And me and BTC Sessions were kind of going back and forth on that. I think something happened to his account. He was scared. And when I started my channel, I always wanted to eventually take it, have my own website, and just kind of really be sovereign, because I promote that in my videos. I'm just suspicious that, you know, in the years to come, incumbents, you know, big pockets are going to come. Maybe they'll push, you know, shitcoins. They'll start kind of pushing them up, helping them get higher in the algorithms. Google might start, you know, throwing their weight around however they see fit. and I don't know that I want to attach my cart to that horse necessarily. So I started my website once that happened, um, and I have an email list, building an email list, and I've started just putting trailers on YouTube because I think in the future, and I don't know when this is going to happen, there's going to be the battle is going to become much more in your face, and you see this now with politics. You see this in different niches on the internet where people are getting deplatformed. I mean, you've been seeing it for a while. Now we have the elections and we have COVID and everything going on, so all that stuff's kind of taking a back seat. But it's very much a real thing, and it's a big problem. And so if I think if you don't have multiple mediums, right? If you don't have different ways to connect with people, if everything's reliant on one thing, that might be a problem in the future. So I I I encourage people building their YouTube channels, Twitter followings, like everything, right? Because it makes a difference. But it's gotta be spread out. I was watching Max's show today, or the most recent, maybe 2 episodes ago, and they were talking about Minds.com, and I'd never heard of that. And I checked it out, and I guess it's some new platform that has Bitcoin payments involved for content creators. I'm not sure. I wanted to look into it more, but like these kind of things, like Gab and all these different platforms are coming up, and something's going to stick. Something that um, synergizes with the content creator in a way that maybe Bitcoin helps, right? Because if you cut out that middleman, you cut out that the ad revenue model, content creators are going to make a lot more money. I think the content space is going to evolve, and it's going to change into something way better than it is now because the incentives change, right? Right now you have Google in between. They're charging advertisers. They're paying you pennies. They're spitting in your face sometimes because you get so little relative to, and it's terrible. And I hope Bitcoin, among so many things that it's going to do, it helps to democratize, create an egalitarian type society for people to really get value from their content. So I'm not a big fan of YouTube, even though I use it, because I would bet, I already have a Bitcoin bet that I'm probably going to lose, but I bet Bitcoin on it. When shit gets real, when the price goes another 5x, maybe 10x, it's going to start getting tougher out there, and content creators might get squeezed in some way or another. Whether it's a random IRS letter, or whether it's just you're all of a sudden you're locked out of your account and you got to jump through some bullshit hoops. It's going to happen, and it happened to Tone. Who knows what happened or why? It happened to Benny. Now they say, oh, it was an error. Sorry, like it was a mistake. But what happens when it's not a mistake? And they're like, all right, tough shit. Sorry.
Yeah, if I can, I'll tag on to that. 100% trusted third parties are security holes, right? Whether it be for Bitcoin or whether it be for your content creation. And so if anything, just for context, as soon as Tone Vase got locked out of his account, I got, right as it was happening, I got a notification, the same one that he did, from YouTube saying like, hey, we flagged your video. And it was like a warning. You're supposed to get a warning, and then you get 3 strikes, and then they like wipe your channel. So I got a warning for a really, it was like top things. It was an old video that he did, top things to know when getting into Bitcoin. And it was like proper security and like how to start a wallet and like don't leave your shit on exchange. It was literally like a list of like, be careful out there. And that got flagged for some reason. And then no strikes. And then they just deleted my channel. Full out 4 years of work disappeared. And I had a panic attack like that. And so luckily I had enough people, like I tweeted it out. I had a few people that gave me some emails to reach out to, and there's enough people like making a stink about it in the wake of Tone Vase getting canceled. There was enough stuff going on there that they quickly got back to me. It was like 24, 48 hours before my channel was back up. But in doing so, it made me realize that, okay, I need to take this warning as a way to make myself anti-fragile. And so I started trying to blast the show to as many different mediums as possible. I'm starting to build up my website as well to KS's point is get your content. I also have backups of literally everything I've ever done. And so it's just mitigating that risk. Like no matter what, if you're like YouTube, like it or not, has a monopoly on internet video. Like anybody who goes anywhere for video is going to go to YouTube. But if you can mitigate that risk in some way, shape, or form, at least you're still there. At least you still have some sort of, you have part of your audience somewhere else. And so that's what I started doing. I wanted to tag on to something else that Max was talking about in regards to kind of like network news and large media. You were talking about CNBC and like the top and them talking about the price of Ripple and shilling shit coins. I actually did a post-mortem 2 years after Brian Kelly went on the air and did his well-diversified crypto portfolio. And it was straight up trash. And so his breakdown, it was like 30% Bitcoin. I think it was 15% Ethereum, 15 Ethereum Classic for some godforsaken reason. And it was like, whatever the hell else. I think metal was one of the like 5%ers in there. Anyways, so I took his well-diversified portfolio 2 years after. I said, okay, well, what happened to you if you put 10 grand into this at the moment this released? And so I went through the numbers. I said, okay, you took 10 grand right now in dollar terms. And this was like last summer, but you were at $13,000. I was like, okay, well, not bad. But let's break that down a little bit more and let's see where those gains came from. All of it was Bitcoin. All of it. Literally everything. The only ones that broke even, I think, were Monero and like one other. It might have been Ethereum. Maybe not even. It was, but 2 coins like just barely broke even, and everything else lost. I shit you not, like 90 to 95%. You got destroyed on everything else you put your money into. And then I did the opportunity cost. So yes, you were up 300 or $3,000 on your 10 grand. But what if you had put it into just Bitcoin? You lost half the Bitcoin you could have had. 50% of your sats out the fucking window if you had listened to Brian Kelly and your well-diversified portfolio. So there's real cost to these shitcoin shilling networks that are out there saying that everything has merit just because there's a bunch of techno babble surrounding it. So I think, I guess to the point where we're talking about us trying to push out good information, and the few people that are out there actually doing it on network news. Again, Max, thank you for being, being one of those people that are helping with the Bitcoin cause. And again, like Pomp is out there whenever he is in an interview, like people are like, well, you're talking about altcoin. He'll be like, well, I'm talking about Bitcoin right now. I know there's associations outside of that, but when he's on network news, he's like, I'm talking about Bitcoin. So it's nice to see. We need more of that, honestly. We need more people that can go out there, can sit on a network and say, this is why this is worth your attention and why this is trash. And we're not going to get it for a while. It'll seep in, but people like to gamble, and you're going to continue to see that until it becomes just blindingly clear that it is gambling with everything else. So I don't know. It'll take some time, but
I don't know that the gambling's ever going to stop. I mean, Max, he said it so well that the options market is this generation's Vietnam, and it's just, I mean, this shit doesn't change, and people are going to, continue to just get annihilated and wrecked. And the more that it's encouraged, it's going to continue. to
Well, look, in the fullest sense of things, okay. In 2011 we started. Now, in 2012, 2013, we started to see things like Ethereum, and they really launched on Kaiser Report, and other projects came on Kaiser Report, and we were of the thinking at that time. We went through that Brian Kelly thinking that, well, the industry as a whole can be supported. And around 2014, 2015, I had a coming to Satoshi moment where I realized that it's not all roads don't go to Bitcoin. Only Bitcoin goes to Bitcoin. And and I became a hardened maximalist. And I came to that after going through, I mean, admittedly, going through, a period where I was not as a maximalist as I was today. But that came. Yeah, everyone on this call is talking about 2015, 2016. That's I had already come and left that learning part of the learning curve. I had already been through it and realized that one of the dangers of the altcoin universe is that they're funding themselves by printing a lot of shitty coins, which can buy influencers, they can buy tweets, they can buy conferences, they can buy a lot of shit that is flashy. And the CNBC is stupid, and they're blind and dumb, and they don't know how to tell one thing from the other. I mean, they've had Jim Cramer on for 30 years. If you add up all of his stocks and buys and sells for 30 years, you'd be losing money. That they don't seem to care. But so therefore, it just became more. I had that moment where I realized that I was not servicing the Bitcoin the way I can and the way I should, by stepping off that path now. So I'm like arch maximalist. If I'm on Twitter now, I'm guns blazing, and I go to war with everybody now. But I had to go through a learning curve like anybody else. So that's the fact. Like, I had to learn the hard way like everybody else. I don't think anyone's going to ever learn the easy way. I think everyone's going to go through this whole shit. Hopefully people learn their lesson and they survive. And they don't get completely blown out of the water and you never hear from them again. Some people actually, if I may continue talking here, I don't want to hog the call, but some people, in my view, actually kind of freaked out and went crazy. Some well-known people in this space, I would classify as a little bit on the crazy side, because they developed messiah complexes, and they're like, my vision for this hard fork is I am Satoshi, right? People actually believing that they are Satoshi with a hard fork. I mean, that's crazy stuff, and that's dangerously crazy, and that needs to be addressed. I don't think it's enough to just ignore it so much as we gotta name it, shame it, and somebody said that we're entering a hardened battle phase now of Bitcoin. The states are looking at it. You think America is going to be happy if Iran gets 20% of the hash rate? No, they're not going to be happy one bit. So, the big battles are coming, in my opinion.
Max, you're on the front lines with those guys, and one by one they're getting picked off. You're like one of the last ones left. How does it feel?
Well, I'm happy, because the lessons that Bitcoin teaches you are ultimately very important life lessons, like humility and things like that, where I've had to just realize that. I mean, in 2011, the Kaiser report was the only source of Bitcoin information for several years. Also, in the altcoin space, when the whole market cap was maybe in total $50 million. That was the total market cap of the entire universe. I mean, it's a power trip to tweet and say, "Oh, Potcoin looks cheap," and watch it triple. I'm not going to lie. That's a very euphoric feeling. But at some point, you realize, you know what, this is really damaging to this mission of what Bitcoin's trying to do. So I had to say, I had to change course and realize I was not positively doing what I needed to do for this thing, and that's what happened. So, and we try to, I'm always now looking for new folks, new voices, new maximalists, new projects, and we always get them on there on the Kaiser Report. I think we got like 1,600 episodes we're working on, probably 400 or more episodes we've featured Bitcoin in some way or another, and it's usually all over the world, right? Some talented, some new project, and anyway. I hope
So
that answers.
if I could jump in, Max, you're bringing up an interesting point, which is that there's a certain aspect of Bitcoin that's really an emergent truth. Like, it's not necessarily intuitive that, for instance, you shouldn't diversify into a whole bunch of the different projects, or that you shouldn't, follow some of these mainstream finance type rules. And you really do have to learn by making mistakes in order to get to kind of this ultimate place where, Bitcoin, it sounds religious to say like Bitcoin is this, there is no alternative, but in actuality, like, you only learn that by making mistakes and figuring out that they're really, everything else is just a short burst trying to get more BTC, right? And so I guess my question to everyone, and whoever wants to jump in first, let me know, is how do you bring your audience through that kind of process when, especially, when you were just talking about Bitcoin on our channels, we're focusing on what's good and what's true, and yet you're kind of watching them make these mistakes that you could totally, help prevent. What's the frustration there? Do you do things actively to try to prevent that?
Yeah, so there's two things, right? There's two components to your question, right? Which is what I call, what you just described is called the learning curve, right? And I have the luck and the privilege to do a podcast. So I talk to Bitcoiners from all walks of life, from Casa to small plebs to homie plebs to big time plebs to other Bitcoin companies, and about 85 to 90% of them have all gone through shitcoinery, right? So I call it like this feedback loop, where like everyone does this loop, right? Where they start and then they come to the realization of like, okay, Bitcoin's the place to be. And to the second component to your question is, and I know that BTC Sessions does this, and man, you have to play back, you have to use their tricks, you have to use that thumbnail, you have to tailor your SEO so it pops up, you have to kind of, and I know this sounds kind of cliche, but I'm going to tell you anyways. Casey Neistat was this big time YouTuber, and he did this video that I'll never forget. He says that he was a total clickbait, but he says clickbait is okay. And he explained it really well. He says, clickbait is okay as long as your content is good, right? So getting someone through the door is the big, and it just to add to what Max was saying, it's you have to make that sell. You have to get someone to click. Once you get someone in the video, then you could do whatever you want, right? But people have all these options, thousands of options, just getting pushed by the mysterious YouTube algorithm. And your job as a Bitcoin YouTuber is to tell that person through a little tiny thumbnail, my video is worth 5 minutes of your time, right? And once you get them catched, right, that's when you have to start delivering. And I think that Max has been doing this for so long, he just does it by second nature at this point. But I know that BTC Sessions has learned this lesson doing the videos that he has. And I know that Keep It Simple Bitcoin, man, you do the same thing. You do tutorial videos, right? Some of my best videos on my podcast or on my other YouTube channel, Not Simply Bitcoin, are my tutorial videos. And it's because people need to see that content. So I got sick and tired of it. I got sick and tired of all these clickbait, altcoin, shitcoin, whatever. And I was like, enough is enough. BTC Sessions he has the vlog / lifestyle / awesome thing covered. Keep It Simple Bitcoin has the awesome tutorial covered. Who can I team up with, right? That's a Bitcoiner that I could just play the same game that they're doing, but hopefully get some of the people that are falling into that feedback loop, right, that I was describing earlier, and speed up the process. So hopefully they could just take a shortcut and not have to get wrecked, right? And follow the advice that BTC Sessions was talking about, like the diversified crypto portfolio. Hopefully, through the content that me and Coin Icarus are making, hopefully, we could kind of manipulate somebody to just skipping straight to Bitcoin. And I know that word sounds horrible. And a lot of people, they talk about how bad toxicity is on Twitter and blah, blah, blah. And man, that's not true. Toxicity will save you a ton of money, right? So man, that's it's a necessary evil. I'll just say that.
So I want to jump in here really quick, and I definitely dabble in shitcoin and altcoin content. I do a podcast called POV Crypto, and I like to have the debate. But on the flip side, like I too was saved by hardcore maximalists. I think Benny was one of the first people I learned from. I credit Ansel Lindner, one of my co-hosts for FedWatch, as a big person who really like showed me the ropes in my journey. Like
By the Bitcoin Dictionary.
Buy the Bitcoin Dictionary, bitcoindictionary.co. But like, where are we in like the stage of onboarding people into Bitcoin? Because like Coinbase now has 1 million coins. It used to only have one coin. Like there are all these different things that are kind of like happening. Is there more noise or is there more signal like at this stage in the Bitcoin ecosystem? And I know I said the B word a lot, so I'm gonna just take a big chug. But yeah, I mean, like let's jump to Kiss BTC. Is there more noise right now, or is there more Bitcoin signal?
I kind of keep it very echo chambery, I guess. I don't really know what the fuck is going on with all this DeFi stuff. And I just see DeFi and I'll see a shitcoin, or I'll see someone getting wrecked like Portnoy. I don't know, he lost a bunch of money on Link. Oh, boo-hoo. It's this fiat mindset, this consciousness of it's indoctrination, really, because we're taught certain things in order to kind of know your place in society, in order to facilitate the role of kind of being a step stool for whatever, the central banking class, right? Like it's I think it's a very, if you start pulling on threads, these social fabrics, you start to see how most of these things are not accidental. And this signal to noise, I think, kind of zooming out, right? Let's get more like macro, like big picture with it, is you can't save anybody that doesn't want to wake up to like reality. If someone wants to just get rich quick and they start like salivating because their buddy just made a quick fix, quick money, like you can't help them until like their mindset changes. They need to understand what Bitcoin is and then why it's important. And if they just want to get a quick fix, if they just want a shot of heroin, like Bitcoin doesn't matter, because Bitcoin's so much more than just like new money. I mean, it's the beginning of like new civilization, right? Like people taking their power back, standing, not having to be, debt slaves. And Bitcoin's not going to change. It's not going to like create utopia, but it's still about the individual taking responsibility. That's what Bitcoin is for me. And that's why I don't really put much energy into anything but like, oh, you want to do this? Well, my video is going to show you exactly what to do. You're gonna have to go and watch, BTC sessions and Nico's. Like that's way before you get to me, because when you get to my videos, you know exactly what you need to do, and you just need help, or someone like recommends, doing something specific. Like that's what I'm doing. Everything else, the fact that you guys dedicate the energy, I love it, but that's not like my focus. I don't get off on that, because like I'm only going to help people that want to be helped. Like I don't talk about Bitcoin in my KYC life at all. My immediate family knows about it because I talk about it all the time, but out in public, I don't say shit, because they're not ready. Like they can't hear it. And you end up getting, you end up getting a bad reaction, right? A lot of the times. And then you just have to deal with that. So I commend everybody here that resonates with doing the the outreach because it's so important. But I just focus on giving the tools for the people that are ready for the tools. That's all I can do.
The hearing you talk, it makes me think of like Dan Held's like marketing funnel, and we could put like Max at the top, and we could put like all of us in between somewhere funneling down to keep it simple at the bottom. That's what it would look like.
100%. 100%.
I did want to tag on
It's
there
pretty
a little
accurate.
bit.
Dude, we take all the brunt. We take all the brunt, so you don't have to deal with crap, man. we do all the clickbaity BS, so you could just just do tutorials.
Kiss gets the hardened maximalists that are like, I need a 3 of 5 fucking multi-sig with only cold card.
And it's a 70-year-old woman that wants it, and she's ready. She does it.
She's fucking ready.
Bro,
ready.
You mentioned Dave Portney, right? Man, we totally did that, and we put that in the thumbnail. And guess what? That video did great, But the whole time we had and I was speaking to Cornicus about this earlier. Man, we're telling the news, but we're doing it from the Bitcoin maxi narrative, right? And that kind of Trojan horses a lot of people, right? Because they're used to these altcoin channels that are just so used to going between Bitcoin, Ethereum, and whatever. And it just kind of tells people like this is all in the same breadbasket, but it's really not, right? So we try to do a really good, we try to do a good job at making it very clear that you're watching a Bitcoin only channel that's going to tell you Bitcoin only related news. But in the same, I don't want to say shady, but in the same kind of altcoin-esque type delivery, right? So I don't know. I think we're serving a purpose.
I want to jump in here.
Sorry, go ahead.
How do we talk? Like, how do you guys talk about Bitcoin without talking about Bitcoin, right? Like, so keep it simple. Said, I don't talk about Bitcoin in my real life. I think I got great advice from Der GG. And he said the best way to talk about Bitcoin is to talk about Bitcoin without talking about it. Talk about what's wrong with the government. Talk about these things. I think Max is the master of that. Like, what's the best way to talk about Bitcoin without necessarily talking about Bitcoin and trying to wake people up to this, complex thing that is Bitcoin?
Share Max Prizes videos.
Real quick, also, CK, I think you said Bitcoin like 12 times right there. And
Yeah,
everyone said Bitcoin a few times, so everyone should take it.
I'll take one of those for you.
Serious.
Well, I always position it against a war against fiat money, and the evils of fiat money. That's the emotional part of it. Is that fiat money, and I can talk about fiat money and the evilness of it. The thing about also in Bitcoin that it's really it's insidious, the whole price discussion, because as far as clickbait goes, if I say on Twitter I think Bitcoin's going to $400,000, I get that's written up in 20 different newspapers or websites in 20 different languages within 6 hours. If I say anything to do with anything other than price, it's kind of ignored. So it's baked into the protocol that the price is the catnip that drives everybody, because a higher price means bigger network, more security, higher price, right? It's a self-feeding virtuous loop. But it's also it's a negative to it, because then people start to equate that with other things that have prices, like stocks and or houses. And they're like, well, is it like a stock? Because I know there's a price for that, and my house has a price. So what I do is I focus on something. If I'm collaring somebody in a social gathering and I've already gone through my fiat speech, then I focus on the one thing in Bitcoin that's never gone down: hash rate. They're like, what is that? So I'm like, and I just go into this long story about this network and this hash rate and 100 quintillion calculations a second. And there's 7 quintillion grains of sand on the planet. And this is 100 quintillion grains of sand. It's just a fantastic story, is hash rate, that calculate the sheer power of it. And you get that across. It's like, not only are you going to defeat the evil fiat, but you've got the power of of an army of this hash, right? So it's like people they leave that conversation motivated. They're gonna get some.
Absolutely. And just to add to that, Max, like we don't focus at all on price because I'm a miner, right? That's what I do. That's my main business, right? So when you said that thing about price, not that many people know that, right? Like if you want to know the health of Bitcoin, you don't look at the price. You look at the hash rate. Period, right? And I could tell you why, but I come from the mining world, so I could tell you that very clearly. But most people don't know that. Most people say price. So we do have a segment which we do only when the price goes up, where there's huge volatility that day, but we rarely do it where we do discuss the price. But I told Coinikers from the very beginning, I said, we're not doing any thumbnails and we're not doing any video titles that has anything to do with the price.
Right.
So
the price, it's like in the gold market, the price of gold, there is no price of gold. There's only the dollar. And because an ounce of gold today is going to still an ounce of gold tomorrow. Gold is priced in ounces. The dollar is priced in some other voodoo shit. We don't know how it's priced. They just pump it out of their anuses. We don't know where it comes from. Right? But an ounce of gold is an ounce of gold. So if the gold price is going up, it means a dollar is collapsing. That's what that means. So Bitcoin price equally it doesn't matter. The correlation of gold, by the way, in Bitcoin has never been higher than it is right now. That story is now becoming absolutely hard welded in the global consciousness. Gold, Bitcoin, one thing. The correlation is now, as Dan Held, who I follow also, he tweeted this out today. Correlation's never been higher. So therefore, in the Bitcoin world, it doesn't matter what the price is because that coin emission's coming every 10 minutes, no matter what the price is. Just like an ounce of gold is always an ounce of gold. Price is not a factor in this story. The dollar collapse, that's the factor in this story. The dollar and fiat money are collapsing in our lifetimes. That's the story. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. So watching right now, I have a way for you guys. I think Bitcoin Magazine has a meme competition right now for like top memes or like best memes or whatever.
We do.
Here's what you're gonna do. This is a freebie. It may be the winner because I think it is to Max's point about like you can't like the price of gold is irrelevant because gold stays gold. Take the roller coaster Bitcoin meme, centralize the dude that's on the roller coaster and have everything else move around him and and say like that he's the center of truth and that everything else
right. It's like Neo in the Matrix when those bullets are coming after him. He's just like picking them off out of the thin air. Everything's chaotic except for Neo.
Yeah,
so
that
exactly.
meme.
That's Bitcoin. That's Bitcoin.
Absolutely. And I think that hash rate, man, I think it's so important just to kind of add to that, because it's still in my head because I've never heard someone say it. So I'm very excited.
Well, remember that, this whole story, part of the reason we had a lot of the block wars and a lot of the contention was this downward hash death spiral that having would engender a mining death spiral. And of course that was completely false. And the main developers like Mike Hearn, who was a big developer, a core developer, boom, he took himself out of the equation.
You want to know why? Because no one understands mining, man, unless if you really get an appreciation of mining when the moment you plug in a miner for the first time, and then you get it. It just clicks, right?
Right. So maybe we're saying on this content side is less price comparison to shit coins and stocks and bonds and more talking about mining and hash rate, because this is the secret sauce. This is the essence of the revolution. This is the combination of these technologies, and when it dropped in January 3rd of 2009 set off the revolution. And it's all about that every 10 minutes. That's why the volatility also doesn't. Are you willing to accept volatility for absolute scarcity and a unit of value that is deflationary and will be used as a store of value, of course you'll accept volatility, just like I accept volatility in gold, because it's not a reflection of the of the value that we're talking about here. It's a reflection of the chaos outside.
But okay, to talk about, like, speaking about price, I don't want to devalue the action of doing that, because in the Max Kaiser Dan Heddle funnel, there's a headline about like a random price prediction from Max Kaiser, which sends people to the Kaiser report, which eventually sends people to the Orange Pill podcast. And so like there's this like hierarchy of like, somebody's like, ooh, and I mean, people come at Bitcoin from different walks of life. And I think you kind of have to attack it differently for different people, right? So you have the people coming in from the Austrian economics side of, or libertarian side of things, and they kind of inherently get it. And I think that their transition to Bitcoin maximalist is probably a little bit smoother, unless they get stuck in the maximalism is not allowing for free markets and competition, because that's not what maximalism is. It's just saying, you know, the free market has offered up jack shit in competition with Bitcoin. That's what maximalism is the market sucks except for this one thing. That's what a maximalist is. You're just believe in this one thing. And
look at the market cap.
Well, no, don't look at the market cap. Don't look at any of that. Don't look at any of that. Just look at the goddamn hash rate, and it's not even fucking close.
Well, yeah,
it's like this, and then all the other guys are like, ooh, you know, like Bitcoin Cash. This is the best representation, right? With any of the Bitcoin Cash people, they talk crap, right? Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin had the same goddamn hash rate whenever that crazy maniac thought he was Satoshi, right? So he convinced Jihan and he convinced all the people at Bitmain that somehow this was a great fucking idea. Disaster, okay? The Bitcoin Cash hash rate, mind you, they started at the same. Bitcoin Cash even went a little bit higher at one point. They started at the same fucking place in 2017. Fast forward to 2020, the Bitcoin Cash hash rate is like, it's like one. If I mess this up, I'm sorry. I can't even pronounce exahash. How is it, Phil? You helped me on this the other day. Exahashes. Okay, so it's like 1 point something exahashes, and the Bitcoin hash rate's like 100 and something. Don't murder me. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, got to
140, 150, right?
I remember when we broke 100.
Okay,
that was a big achievement.
It was a big achievement, but the goddamn definition, right? Like, why is Bitcoin valuable? Like, what gives it value? What's the value proposition?
It's got 80. If you look at the universe of 7,000 coins, Bitcoin's got 85% of the hash rate of the entire universe, and it's growing.
Yep.
It's
okay.
Closing
that number may be a little old. I mean, but from like a few weeks old, but it's good enough. All right.
So it's
like
not
85%.
even close.
It's got 60% of the market cap, 85% of the hash rate, and like 93% of usage.
It's not even close.
Those numbers are crushing it. Like this is such a success story that everything else is so on the margin and fringe. It's not even ridiculous. It's like a Pee-wee team skates onto the ice and they're going to play the New York Islanders for the Stanley Cup. I don't see the Pee-wees doing well in that matchup.
And it's very hard for people coming outside of the space to look at the hash rate and to have an appreciation of what that fucking looks like. Okay. Just to plug in one S17 today at your home, you're going to fry your outlet, because if you live in America, it's 120 volts or whatever. You need 240. So you need to make that transition. Oh, by the way, you're going to kill your electricity unless you need it as a heater or something. Right. So to kind of understand how hard it is to mine, and the fact that people are doing it anyway, tells me that these people that are willing to take this huge gamble in capital are putting a really, really big bet in Bitcoin. And at the end of the day, the price follows the hash rate. The hash rate doesn't follow the price. And it's a great representation. If you just look back historically, you could just look at it.
Nico, to your point, I tweeted out, like, this was like a few months back. I had to search and find it, but I tweeted out transaction finality and immutability in the digital realm is a sliding scale. Bitcoin is cranked all the way to fucking 11 while nothing else even comes close. And then I linked to a website that everybody should look at, howmanyconfs.com, CONFS.com. And it shows how many confirmations you would need on any other network to get the same finality of 6 confirmations on the Bitcoin network. And it is fucking mind-blowing. And that's the people don't get, that's the value proposition here. Like understanding that you can send value immutably, irreversibly to somebody and be 100% sure that you have transferred X amount of value to that other person or entity, and be sure that it's there, because nobody else even comes close to achieving what Bitcoin does.
So I want to jump in real quick. Oh wait, Cornicus, do you want to say something?
Oh, I just wanted to quickly say, there's a lot of people that come to Bitcoin, right, for the get rich quick, right? Because they everybody hears the stories about the Lambos and you know what I mean, all the thousands of percents return. But the reality is that, once they get wrecked in get rich quick, the ones that stick around end up sticking around for the Bitcoin and the get rich slowly.
Totally. So actually that kind of brings me to what I was going to say. In BTC sessions, I'm kind of piggybacking on you a little bit. But, back in Bitcoin's nascency, there was a real use case around, like a Silk Road type thing. And people stumbled on Bitcoin because, they were wanting to, use something black market-esque, right? Nowadays, most people stumble on Bitcoin because they saw somewhere that it's like a great investment, and they see it through the investment lens. And so I just wanted to Max, you disappeared.
I gotta stop mining. I turned my miners on, and it
Is that
blew all
Justin
my sockets.
Trudeau there?
What
It
was
blew
I saying?
everything out.
What was I saying?
Well, Max kind of comes back to life over there. Basically, the way that I kind of see this is like the funnel that we're talking about really does start with someone believing that they can invest into Bitcoin and eventually grow rich because of it. And so when I think about how we cover it, and then Bitcoin Magazine, we don't cover price basically at all. But when I think about how you get the top of the funnel to pay attention, it really does end up being price right now. There's just no other way to get an average person walking down the street to care about Bitcoin. And then once they're there, then it's explaining about fiat, explaining about all the issues with the current system that we have, explaining about, why does this thing have so much value? But until people even start paying attention, we really can't, like, it's like a invisible force field that's preventing them from even paying attention to what Bitcoin is in the first place. Do you guys disagree with that?
Well, it's the Trojan horse, right? Like anyone who would tell you that they got into Bitcoin because they thought the ideologies were cool is fucking lying to you, like flat out. They got into Bitcoin because they thought the number could go up, right? And then that kind of
but what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think numbers go up is the best marketing.
Exactly. It totally is, right? It Trojan horses people in, but once they're in, then they get kind of exposed to, wait, the money's broken. And then you start to understand what all the consequences of a broken money comes out to the rest of society, right? So, but you only open your eye, from my experience, right? I could be wrong here, but from my experience, what I've noticed in people and what I've noticed in myself is that I only noticed that the money was broken until I was like, number go up technology, orange coin good. But I got in initially because I was like, okay, I'm going to get rich by this, which I was totally wrong because it takes time with anything, right? But once I got in, I just opened my eyes. I started listening to videos of Max. I started listening to videos of Andreas, and I was like, everything's broken, the Fed, and all that crazy stuff.
Nico,
right?
I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So maybe you can dive a little bit more into how Bitcoin changed you, I guess, as a person, because personally, I was shit at saving. I never saved anything because the alignment of incentives never pushed me to do so, right? Like I guess not explicitly, but I knew in general, if I saved my money, it would buy me less in the future. I knew that, you know, if I took out a loan, whatever, like it's just like the culture shaped around me this like fiat mentality. So like, did you experience similar things?
Not only did I experience similar things, I actually kind of went in depth on this topic the other day with one of my guests, and we coined the term Bitcoinism, right? So you have libertarianism, you have liberalism, you have conservatism, and Bitcoinism. What is Bitcoinism? So Bitcoinism kind of has some conservative type things, right? Like we like to save, you know, we're frugal, right? We like guns, right? But is it conservatism? No, it's not conservatism. It's Bitcoinism, right? So I think that anyone that really started the journey down the rabbit hole, to add to your point, BTC sessions, man, like I think that it changes your philosophy of life. It really does, right? Because before you used to not like, look, try going to a try no, I don't know how rated this show is, but try going to a gentleman's club and throwing your sats just like that. That's gonna hurt a lot. Now try doing that with dollar bills. Not so bad, right? But try doing that with satoshis.
I think
you're gonna think twice.
I think in general, like, okay, so locally, I do like sit downs where if somebody needs help with Bitcoin, they want to learn something, I'll sit down. I was sitting down with somebody literally 2 days ago. It'd be really cool. Actually, I really hope he's watching this, because we had a just the best conversation, and I miss this because it's like people are wary to go out and chat and everything right now. But man, it energized the hell out of me because I sat down with this guy. I said, you know what? Like we got through like the practical part of, okay, I need to learn this, and then we just got into like one-on-one basic conversation. I said, you know what? Like this is getting into Bitcoin has changed who I am as a person. I look back into to like 2015. So again, like Americans, sorry, I'm excluding you from this, but there was a Canadian election happening in 2015, and there was the incumbent conservative prime minister, and then there was this incoming like the opposition was Justin Trudeau, the liberal leader, and I was very, very liberal at that point. Like so much so, like I was incessant on social media, just posting. And I was like, forgive me, I was a year into Bitcoin at this point. But so most of my like left leaning tendencies were social issues, because I was like, everybody should just have like a fair crack of it at everything. Equality, what I learned later, equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. And so as I got into Bitcoin, and as I like, you know, went from this super left leaning person, I started to look at certain conservative values, especially in relation to equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome. And I kind of realigned myself, and I went through this almost like awakening of changing, not understanding where my values were coming from and what could actually fix the problems that I saw in the world. I didn't necessarily change my values, but I just understood better the systemic problems that I saw and what could possibly fix them. And as stupid, not to you guys as it sounds, but like to any outsider listening to this, I see Bitcoin as a solution to many of those problems, because you have to start from the foundation before you can start building towers in the sky. And our foundation is fucking crumbling right now. And until we fix it, I don't see a way out.
Absolutely. And I think that if people, you know, instead of spending their time going out and protesting for for communism and socialism, which is a horrific idea, but I'm not going to get into that. They should just spend their time on Bitcoin Twitter. Not only are they going to make a lot more money, but it's actually going to help their lives. Unlike socialism, Marxism, and communism, because that is a horrific or horrendous idea, but I'm not going to get into that right now.
So I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Have you read
Max.
Bitcoin and Black America?
I haven't, but I'm from Venezuela, so I know what communism is like, and it's terrible. It's a horrific. Man, we went from the fourth GDP in the world in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Oh, that's shout out to that book.
Bitcoin and Black America. So Isaiah Jackson, he epitomizes, in my view, the transformation, the process. Getting into Bitcoin, he changed everything in his life. He changed his diet. He changed his exercises, changed his relationship. And he went from, he described himself as being a guy who was, 1 foot in gangland, and on the edge of social complete, being a pariah, if not worse. And Bitcoin got into his head, and he went through a metamorphosis. And now he's the guy. It's an unbelievable story, and it's a great book, for that aspect to it. And so I just, I agree with this idea that it has the ability to metamorphose somebody into a person who is when you're saving money, you achieve individual sovereignty, don't you? You're independently wealthy, with the emphasis on independence. You don't need to do shit you don't want to do because you're in debt, or because you are being coerced, because you've got unconfiscatable wealth, which is your fuck you money, and you can walk away. That's the greatest power anybody has. It's a superpower. The power to walk away. If you don't like it, doesn't smell right, get the fuck out. You have that prerogative because you've got unconfiscatable wealth.
So who here has read The Sovereign Individual?
I have the book. Does that count?
I mean, I feel like the biggest thing with the book is like, these technologies like cryptocurrencies are going to give individuals the ability to exit, the ability to be free of jurisdiction, and that's going to change the game.
You know what?
And I just feel like that's exactly what Max is talking about there.
I'm going to add to that, CK. What I've noticed is that people when they come on my podcast, the people that understand Bitcoin the most without having to explain it to them are people in third world countries where their currency has high inflation. People in the West see it as like a speculative asset. People in third world countries, you don't need to explain it to them. They get it right off the rip. They're like, where can I buy some? Like immediately, right? It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Here you have.
They're also skeptical of getting scammed, but yeah.
Chris, what are you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, like, here you have to you have to get people to unlearn something that they've learned, and to your point, because like the U.S. dollar has this power that it has, it makes it incredibly difficult to get the point across that the money is bad. Like it like that's what it is, that challenge, and this is why, at least for me anyways, that this is why it's much easier to just explain to somebody, unfortunately, number go up, because that's the way to get to something that they care about, and then you can start to give them the information once they're interested.
I think you're pointing, you're on an excellent point there. I think to add to that, I think it's different from Nico. You were talking about people in jurisdictions where there's hyperinflation. It's very easy to explain to somebody, hey, there's a currency where no one has the control to inflate it, and you can send it and use it wherever you like across the globe. Instant. Okay, I get it. Great. Can I use it? With somebody that is in a jurisdiction, basically anywhere else in the world, in like a first world country, what they're going to get is, because they're told things are great, right? Stock market's at all-time highs. Why the fuck aren't you happy? Like, that's what people hear. They're like, things should be good for me, but I feel like things are not great. Things are harder. And so if you tap into that, if you can say, listen, have you noticed when you go to get groceries, it is way more fucking difficult to like stock your fridge? Like you go, you spend $100 of groceries and you got 2 bags. Like what's that going to do for you? And then you start diving down that rabbit hole of what's actually happening? Why is your money not going as far? And if you can, again, and it's a long rabbit hole to go down. You can't even really do it in a single conversation unless somebody gives you hours of their time. But you can start diving down, like, listen, like you are getting a piece of the pie with every paycheck, but the pie keeps growing and your piece of the pie keeps shrinking. And so you can buy less. There's a limited number of services and goods out there, and you can buy less and less of them with your paycheck. And the newly printed money, like the trillions that you just saw printed for COVID, guess what? That $1,200 paycheck doesn't mean jack shit, because way more of it went to the elites that get to decide what to do with it rather than yourself. And as long as your piece of the pie keeps shrinking, you keep getting fucked by the people that get to print that money. So do you want to weigh out? Here's the door, and it's called Bitcoin.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
BTC sessions, you kind of drill into what I think is like a really interesting part of all of this, which is ultimately all of us are all kind of narrative crafters. You know, we're trying to get the message across, and we're in this just ridiculous situation right now where the narrative couldn't be more clear to the average person about really what we're dealing with, what we're up against, how the system is broken, and that there might be a way out. I'm curious to hear from Coin Icarus and Kiss Bitcoin a little bit because we haven't heard enough from you guys. How do you see the narrative? You know, how are you explaining it? How do you see it growing from here? You know, where do you kind of see yourself interacting with it, and what do you see kind of ultimately this opportunity as a YouTuber?
Okay, I guess I'll kick it off. That's like multi-parted question. I'm gonna desperately try to answer all of it, but it'll probably just come out like a jumble. But okay, so all right, like there's obviously there's a whole bunch of different elements, right? That we're trying to balance. At the end of the day, the narrative for me is really just about people. Like, look, I'm of the the small minority that I guess came to Bitcoin for medium of exchange. I knew that the money was broken when I was a kid, but I immediately understood that my only way out was to find some way to produce it while I'm not working, or stock up on gold and metal, and own some type of property or business that creates money for you, because immediately I understood that the money was broken. So for me, I came to it from a medium of exchange, and for me, the narrative is really about opting out, and it is about like when that meme, right? The Matrix, sorry, the Neo and Morpheus meme. Like once you opt out, like when do I trade my my Bitcoin back into fiat? Well, the point is, when this if this works, you shouldn't have to. And like that's exactly the point. Like for me, it's like I shouldn't have to opt out. I should be able to stay and transact in the ecosystem. So I mean, I guess like where do I intend in going with all of this? I just intend to produce Bitcoin only content that I think is going to help people steer away from the bullshit, the stuff that I got scammed by because I believed in the better tech narrative. Like that's something easy that people fall into. And this is how they fall for a lot of these scams, because a lot of these things don't actually require a token to perform the function that they're performing. But yet there's a white paper around it, there's a team, there's a whole bunch of there's a nice big bow around the shit, so it looks pretty. But yeah, so at the end of the day, I'm just there to produce the the Bitcoin only content. And I think that for me, the narrative is that currently when I talk to people, it doesn't even really have to do with Bitcoin. It has to do with the broken money. But optimally, if they go down the crazy rabbit hole with me, they're going to get to the point where I tell them that they shouldn't have to opt out and that they should be able to exist in this ecosystem permanently at some point. So that's what I got.
Awesome.
Kiss,
awesome.
you've been showing people how to exist in the ecosystem. Why don't you chime in? Like,
Yeah.
How's the circular economy growing, and how easy is that to do?
Also, we've all said Bitcoin a bunch, so make sure you get another drink.
So on my to-do list, actually, I want to write an article about exactly what kind of this, because the reason that I have this beautiful two-piece suit on is because I care about my privacy, and because I like being able to hide in the crowd. But more than anything, it's I want to show people, and this is what kind of one of the reasons why I started my whole channel. Bitcoin allows you to thrive without having to corrupt yourself by giving into the structures of this system, right? You don't have to compromise everything, have everything out there just to be able to make a living. Bitcoin allows you to create something and get compensated for it without having to compromise your identity if you choose, your security. Everything in the KYC world is so onerous, and it's becoming way worse. And so I want to show people it's possible. Like, we're in the new world. You just kind of have to like wake up and realize where you are and start moving forward in it. And as platforms start to see how profitable this can be, and I don't know how they're going to see that, but as it happens, I think as numbers go up, something will happen. Their greed, right, will propel this forward. The beauty of the design of Bitcoin is that it leverages the greed in society. I don't think everybody is greedy. I think there's a group of people that thrive on that need to suck on the life, the consciousness. They need you to be a debt slave in order for them to thrive. There's a small, the 1%, whatever they are, they thrive off of that, and their system will collapse when people say, no, I'm not going to participate in this. Bitcoin doesn't fix inequality of wealth. In fact, it may make it worse. But what it does fix is it gives people a fair shake. It says, look, this is exactly how it is. This is what it is. And how are you going to participate in it? And it's not a bait and switch. Fiat money is a bait and switch. The loss in purchasing power over the last 100 years is completely fucking over such a large percentage of the population globally, because the dollar, everything is basically in dollars, right? Dollars the safe currency, and the majority of the planet's population is being parasitically eaten by a small portion of the population. That's because of fiat money, and that's because of the structures that are in place. So this stupid costume, I'm showing you guys, look, you can do this, you can step into this, and you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Yes, you still have to pay your taxes. Taxes are a voluntary reporting of your income. I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole, but I'm comfortable talking about it because I'm not worried I'm going to get a fucking IRS letter in the mail, not at least right away. But these different things, OPSEC and all these things matter for so many different reasons. But like, anybody can do it. You can start a website, right? And my article is going to be how to start a website, how to, I'm working on a BTC pay video right now. All of these things you can do without KYC, and you can start earning money without any KYC. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. Yes, you still have to pay your taxes, but you can report income without divulging your UTXO set. They don't give a shit yet. I mean, I think the question on the top of the IRS form, it's like the first question is, I don't know, did you invest in crypto or whatever it is? But like, it's like at the very top now because they are scared shitless. I went on a little rant, but that's what happens an hour into.
I want to jump into that. I basically want to say that every single one of us on this fucking show is totally fucked other than KIS Bitcoin.
100%. Facts.
Like
so fucked.
Max Stiers is Bitcoin rich, so he's gonna be the big money bags that like help funnel.
Max, you need to direct
let me follow up on that.
Direct the regulation, please.
The thing about it is that Bitcoin is acting as a bit of a fifth column inside the U.S. government because there are Bitcoiners now inside the U.S. government. And as we get to confrontation with the U.S. government, because remember, the biggest loser in the global finance grid is going to be the dollar. As somebody mentioned, in countries like Argentina, Venezuela, Iran, they understand Bitcoin immediately because they need to. It's a necessity. They don't haggle about, shit coins or, personalities. They're like, I need it. Their learning curve is instantaneous because it makes perfect sense and they get it. Who's the biggest loser in the global currency game? It's going to have to be the US dollar, which has been the world reserve currency for 100 years. So as we head into this now, there's going to be, we love the fact that we have this coin, this Bitcoin, and it's deflationary and it's competing against the US dollar. But the collapse of the US dollar is going to cause a lot of social unrest. We already see it, in all these protests, in all these cities that are on fire. And America is going through a 1970s like chaotic social unrest, total chaos. And that is all linked back to money printer go burr. And the US dollar is losing its position as world reserve currency. That means, as people have said, inflation, prices are going to go up, and more social unrest. So that's the downside of victory in the Bitcoin war, is we're going to be living in a society that's on fire. But that's real. It's as real as it gets. Those people in Argentina and elsewhere that are seeing their economies get obliterated, and you turn on the news and you're like, oh, that's terrible. That's going to be us, and it's coming. It's coming quick. And
does it have to be that way?
Yeah, it does, because I think so, because the dollar is being printed into oblivion, and it's causing this extinction event. The Fed is printed more in the last 3 months than they've printed in 50 years. They're absolutely out of control, and the chaos unfolding is, and you're heading into this election, which is going to be crazy for a lot of different reasons. One of which will be they probably won't even be able to figure out how to count the votes. That basic vote counting part of the election looks like it's going to be severely challenged. So now you've got all those elements coming together. And okay, we've got this winning coin. I mean, Bitcoin could price go up. I mean, during this chaotic election, you could see that $50,000 price because the dollar is going to be in severe jeopardy. But the problem is, as Americans, we're going to be living in a very hot situation, particularly in the cities. People who have wealth are got that second passport. They got that third passport. They can go to the airport, hop on a jet, and get the fuck out of here. And that's what's going to happen in November. And you already see it happening. The president of Barbados said recently that the number of people that are just moving there for the election from America is rising quite sharply. So that group of folks are going to be taken care of because they're going to leave. So now we're going to be here fighting, and it's going to be pretty chaotic. So and as Americans, we feel this in a way where we want Bitcoin to succeed, but for Bitcoin to ultimately succeed, the dollar has to fail. And that's something that as Americans, that means our empire that's been 100 years in the making, all that World War II victory and all that technological supremacy is got to fail ultimately for this to win, but it's got to be. And that's where it's going to get tough. And that's where the battle lines are going to be drawn. And that's where people, KYC, with weaponized KYC on steroids, they're not going to fool around. So we got to brace ourselves for, I think, tough times.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing it now. I mean, they're already weaponizing the KYC. It's the last. I mean, I came into Bitcoin. You can buy with no KYC so easily. I mean, it was such a beautiful, graceful thing. And the last 3 years, all you have left, I mean, in the US at least, all you have left is BISC. There's nothing else unless you're willing to go meet someone on the street, and that comes with its own problems. It's completely gone. It's like it's almost like they've already usurped the last way to anonymously obtain Bitcoin, aside from a physical transaction, is mining it, and that's difficult for a lot of people. I mean, that's an expensive, difficult thing. So one element of the war already has been going on. Most people don't want to see the reality of the situation. The war has been waged, and it's in your face. If you look for it, it's right there.
Right. To kind of
KYC
finish
everywhere.
off on that, what I was saying about the fifth column is, in other words, if enough people in government are holding Bitcoin, they become allies. So we need people in government and high levels in places in government to become Bitcoiners. So I mean, whenever I get a chance to talk to anybody in government, it's always about bracing for this, because we want to change the laws. He who has the Bitcoin makes the laws, and you can get laws. Laws are bought in the United States. That's how laws come into existence. They're paid for. So
Fact.
As dollars
Unpaid for.
crashes, and we've got the only hard currency, we're going to say, hey, you know what, Mr. Senator, we'll support your reelection, but you've got to change this KYC law. And I think that's a viable alternative for the Bitcoin communities. We're going to buy our way out of this restriction. And we have the greatest ally on our behalf is the dollar is going to crash. We'll have the only hard currency, right? So we've got agency. They'll be like, the dollar's crashing. You've got the gold bugs, and they've got gold, but a lot of that's centralized, and it's surrounded by police and army, and it's hard to store gold. Gold is not practical. And then there's an army of Bitcoiners who are now sitting on $1 trillion worth of Bitcoin or more. And they're like, help us. We'll be like, yeah, we'll help you. You need to change the law first, and then we'll help you.
Peter Schiff in disbelief.
Well, he's just, he's the best marketer in Bitcoin is Peter Schiff.
Yeah, 100%.
He's the only one who understands marketing in the Bitcoin space is Peter Schiff, and he hates Bitcoin, and he bashes Bitcoin. He's the only one that's actually benefited from a marketing perspective. His gold business has benefited more than any Bitcoin business has been hurt by his Bitcoin bashing, and by any Bitcoin business able to publicize itself, except for maybe Barry Silbert, who does seem to understand marketing.
I'm super bullish on Peter Schiff's son, Spencer Schiff, who has just doubled down on his Bitcoin bet. And okay, I challenge, if he sees this, if he's watching this, Spencer Schiff, come on, man, you got to do this. So there is Schiff Gold. You got to start Schiff Sats. There's no way you can't start Schiff Sats. What if you don't start Schiff Sats? What are you doing with your life?
I'm sure it'll happen, but you know what? That's great marketing. I mean, look, Peter Schiff is a genius marketer, and this teeing up of his son as my rivalry with my son, the Bitcoiner, is marketing genius. And they should do Schiff Sats, and they probably will do Schiff Sats. And but again, that came out of the gold community. The Bitcoin community is still like not marketing, to get back to Dan Held's pyramid thing.
So wait, let's criticize that a little bit more, because that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? We're supposed to be marketing like right back at you, like Max. What's your biggest gripe with the current state of Bitcoin marketing?
Well, like I said at the beginning, it's a question that comes up all the time. And Bitcoin is decentralized, which is greatest strength, but there's no way to hire a publicist. And the world works on publicists. When you say, oh, my video has clickbait because that's the state of the industry, that's correct. The state of the industry everywhere is publicists. Publicists make the world go round. And everybody, and we don't have them. So we very quickly are defined by the worst of us, because the worst of us gets the worst trolls and the worst scumbags get way too much attention because there's no counter story being professionally presented and hitting the media in a barraged way. Okay, now that's slow. The only people, like I said before, Pomp and Melton Demirs are the first two people I've seen that are actually on that professional level. Like Pomp is just like a mercenary. He doesn't do any bullshit, does he? He's just like boom, 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 boom. And we need more Pomps.
Yeah. Max, can I give you a question? You were talking about like, I guess like I don't want to be hyperbolic, but the inevitable demise of our current, I guess, society. And so do you prescribe to the idea of like the fourth turning? Like, so to quote here, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. Do you think that's inevitable? And do you think that Bitcoin is part of that like fourth turning of like, weak men creating this weak money, and then Bitcoin ushering in like hard times and then greater men? And do you think that Bitcoin breaks that cycle, or do you think that it then starts a new cycle of building a bullshit fiat standard upon Bitcoin like we had with gold?
Right. So the big question is, are we at the end of a major cycle that is a collapse cycle? And I think all the indicators would suggest we are, and are we are we're on the cusp of we're in the middle of several cycles. I mean, there's the fourth turning, which is like an 80-year cycle, but we're on some other cycles, a generational cycle. The baby boomers are all gone. You've got the millennials and the Gen Z. That's a whole new generation. They're bigger than the baby boomers. They've got a completely different mindset. You've got in the markets, you've had the bond market's been in a bull market for 40 years. When I started on Wall Street in 1982, the 10-year Treasury bond was yielding like 20%. It's now yielding less than 1%. That took 40 years. And so now, if in fact you're going to find interest rates start to go up, that's like kicking the economy so hard, you're not going to believe how difficult that adjustment will be because of the leverage that we're sitting on. The U.S. has like 110% debt to GDP. The world has 300% debt to GDP. Imagine suddenly if your interest expense suddenly goes up 5, 6, 700% in 6 months to a year. Every bank and insurance company is insolvent, and they're all flowing through the United States. The New York branch of the Fed clears every single transaction in dollar base, goes through the New York Fed, and every commodity in the world is priced in dollars. Oil is priced in dollars. If Japan needs oil, they have to buy dollars first. Okay, the petrodollar is the world currency. It's been that way since 1971 when we went off gold standard under Nixon, and now that cycle is also peaking. The cycle with the U.S.-Saudi relations is peaked. That's disintegrating. The cycle of globalization is peaked. We're now de-globalizing. We're de-dollarizing. We're de-Chinification. We're depopulating, right? All those cycles, multiple cycles, are all coming to a head right now. And into that mix drops Bitcoin, right? It drops in 2009. The Genesis block says, Chancellor on verge of second bailout. It's an overt, nod to banking corruption and the role of what's happening in fiat. Satoshi in his paper, in his chats everywhere, he makes reference to gold all the time. I think it's quite obvious that this is, gold. The white paper replaced the word cash on the title page with the word gold, and you understand Bitcoin better than everybody else, including Roger Ver, who doesn't understand that simple. He totally misinterprets that and has gone down the devil's, dead end. And so yes, this Bitcoin is the ability to navigate out of this flaming dumpster fire of a multiple cycle shit show. Yes, I agree. Yes, it's a multiple cycle shit show. And yes, Bitcoin is the path out. Why? Why are we being gifted this? Why is it just because we're lucky we lived in this time? I think it's for millennials and Gen Z, you're lucky. Because I'm a baby boomer and I started on Wall Street in 82, and quite frankly, I've been living in a bull market for 40 years. Bitcoin made me a shitload of money, but so did stocks in 1982. So did the gold business. I've made everything I've been through in my life has been profitable. I've never been through a bear market in anything. But the millennials inherited 9/11. They got 2008 financial crisis. They got COVID. They've been dealt the worst hand in 300 years, the millennials and Gen Z. But they did get Bitcoin. Bitcoin is their only way out. I'm 60. I'm heading out the door. I'm not 20. So this is
you know what? You can say that the universe has created a situation so that all of those millennials can better appreciate Bitcoin because it'll break the 100-year cycle. I mean, it's way more than 100 years because, since the ancient times, emperors have been clipping coins for long, long time. Coin clipping, debasement, inflation, all that shit doesn't work with a fixed supply asset. All of that, thousands of years of history changes like that. So Bitcoin is like a level up in consciousness for the planet because it forces you, either you step up, you wake up, you take some responsibility, you step into it, or you don't, and you get sucked into the quicksand of this catastrophic climate Max is describing with the dollar just going to shit, which has to happen. I mean, they can't continue to do this. They can't continue to insulate themselves. The end of globalization, all of this stuff, without the dollar just spontaneously combusting. But it's not spontaneous. It's been happening for it's been in the making since Bretton Woods.
Right. I agree with you that, throughout history, you had world reserve currencies. I believe it started with Portugal and then with Spain, then the Netherlands, then France. And then after Waterloo, we had the British pound as world reserve currency. Then after World War I, it was the US dollar. Every time it lasts about 100 years. And the US has had it for about 100 years. So now the baton is going to be passed. The US will no longer be world reserve currency. China, Russia, all these other countries are stockpiling gold. They're getting into Bitcoin, and they're doing bilateral deals outside of the dollar, and they're on a very aggressive footing, and they're saying, fuck you, America. Let's be honest. And they're getting out of the dollar. That's how they're expressing that sentiment. So therefore, the US dollar is poised to undergo a substantial global collapse. That will make life in America very, very difficult. And Bitcoin is a path to dry land. It's a path out if you've got that hard money. It's superior in gold in many, many, many ways, which we all know. And that's the path. So I agree with you. It's historically, there's a precedent for this. It's not new. This is not a new thing historically. It's happened over and over again. And now it's time for this empire to experience that as well.
You guys, I want to jump in here. We are hitting the 2 hour mark. I think this is a good time to wrap it up. I know people on the East Coast, it's very late for y'all. Unless anyone has any strong feelings about this specific topic, I think we should jump into last word. All right, cool. Well, let's start off with Nico. Nico, why don't you give your last words to the Bitcoin Magazine audience?
Guys, thanks for listening. Subscribe to Simply Bitcoin, and man, stay humble, stack sats.
Beautiful. All right, let's jump to BTC sessions.
Yeah, awesome. Really enjoyed chatting with all you guys. If I could push one, I guess, tendency upon Bitcoiners is I would like you to approach new Bitcoiners or no coiners with low time preference. Bitcoiners always talk about low time preference, but when it comes to teaching new coiners and no coiners, we're very high time preference. We want everybody to onboard to the best possible onboarding immediately, but that's not how it fucking works. You gotta take those little wins in between. Get people off an exchange and get them holding a wallet, even if it's just mobile. Take that victory. It's for you to take, and then get them on a hardware wallet, and then get them on a better hardware wallet, and then get them maybe doing multi-sig or partially signed Bitcoin tracks or whatever you want to do, but just take them down the path gradually, because if you attack it all at once, you are being high time preference as fuck, and you need to slow down because you will not get those victories if you don't take your time. That's it.
That's very good advice, and everyone really has a unique angle that you need to take with them. Everyone has something different that is important to them. All right, let's go to KISBTC. Why don't you give your last words, sir?
I just want to, you have to be able to love yourself before you can love anyone else. And Bitcoin teaches you how to love yourself. It teaches you fundamentally the principles of self-respect, respect for your time, your energy. And that's the difference between a shitcoiner and a Bitcoiner. A shitcoiner has no self-respect. And I say that from a fundamental place. I say that from love, because that limited scope, that outlook, is only doing you harm. You're only feeding exactly what all of us have been talking about. You're giving energy, conscious focus to the world that you live in that's constricting your life experience. Bitcoin is not a utopian, it's not gonna make everything better, but it's gonna make a lot of things better. So focus on loving yourself, and then you can focus on loving others. You can focus on helping others. Go on my website, keepitsimplebitcoin.com, subscribe to my mailing list, because I am not a fan of trusted third parties. And that's how you can, directly communicate with me. And you can find out about new videos. I'm making a BTC Pay server video. That's like the shit, accept Bitcoin, no intermediaries. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, I love
Do
that.
it.
I love that.
Do
All
it.
right, let's go to Max and then close it out with Coin Icarus. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
This is a great show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And we're always trying new things. We just started now a few weeks into Orange Pill podcast, so we try to take it to the next level. And I hope everyone checks it out. It drops every Sunday, and then we're going to start some new, do it more frequently, but definitely for now, every Sunday, Orange Pill podcast. It goes out to multiple podcasting platforms and YouTube.
It was absolutely awesome to be here. Don't forget to check out Simply Bitcoin, and for some stuff to to leave to the listeners. Be critical and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Cool. Fantastic advice, everyone. Thank you again for joining. And to the audience, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Bitcoin Magazine's working hard to bring you that A plus Bitcoin knowledge, and so are all these gentlemen. So thanks again.